back to Car Panel 365. This is your host, Star Coates. Today I'm going to be reading from John 8 and 32. And first of all, I would like to give honor and praise to God, and I thank Him for allowing us to be here together today, and thank you all that are here with me and those that have tuned in to listen. John 8:32, and ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free. Romans 1:18, for the wrath of God is revealed from heaven against all ungodliness and unrighteousness of men who hold the truth in unrighteousness. I chose these two scriptures this morning because I want to talk about a very long and argumentative topic that has been, gone over millions of times now. People asking, what do the Hebrews look like? Who are they really? And so on. Or Israelites, whichever one they want to refer to them, or Jews. And I am going to go through just a little bit. I'm going to start off with the Battle of Tiltuba, and some people refer to that as the Battle of Ely. The Battle of Tiltuba in 653 BCE was a battle between invading Assyrians and the kingdom of Elam. And we know that Elam is also referred to as the Elamites. And a lot of people put up these photographs or depictions from that battle, which you can go and you can find this battle at the British Museum, I believe, and there's depictions there of what happened in the battle. So someone preserved and carved what was happening, which they were a stellar artist, by the way, to capture every little detail of what was happening, what the people looked like, to capture their facial features, their hair, and so on. And a lot of people refer to this photograph as people that are the true Hebrews. Now, one thing that I do agree with is that they are relatives to the Israelites, and that is why they look very much like them. Some people may not agree with that. They may say, well, you know what, those are just the Israelites. And that's fine, that's their personal belief. But we always lump everybody together. And yes, they do share very similar features, very similar African American features even today, such as their cornrows or dreads, or their knotted hair, or like the twisties that we see that are twisted into balls. Those kind of hairstyles and facial hair features do resemble that of a black man. Okay, and the next scripture is Genesis 10 and 22. The children of Shem, Elam, and Ashur, and Arphaxad, and Lud, and Aram. Now, I put that verse up there just to give you guys a little bit of context of whom came from where. Even though, the word tells us we don't have to worry about those endless genealogies and things like that. But just to give you a picture and idea of where these family groups stem from and why they look so similar, such as Shem and Elam, because they are very closely related, just as I stated in the beginning, as well as the Assyrian people. they're all within that same family group. Uh, because just as I stated before, we tend to lump everybody all in one, and we'll say, oh, all of these depictions or all of these battles, or carvings or stones, carvings are all Israelites, which, just as I stated before, the people look so much alike because they are descend from the same family group. And if you guys don't understand what that means, that just like your grandparents, for instance, we'll start with Grandpa Shem. Grandpa Shem married Grandma so-and-so, and they had Elam, and then, which would be, uncle to most of the people here. Then Elam had a brother, Ashur, and then their parents had another child, and another child, and another child. So then we all know, even within our own family groups, once your parents have children, you have children, then, your children, and so on. So these people groups continue to spread and spread and spread and spread. So when we see these people battling each other over long periods of time, you're fighting auntie, uncle, cousin, and you get what I'm saying. So that's what we're seeing over and over again, and that's why the people look so much alike. And that is one of the hardest things, especially those that may not have been taught the proper ideology of some of these people groups, at their church or, wherever they decided to get some study of the Bible from, whether they went to theological seminaries or, schools and so on. Sometimes they don't really go in and talk about the people groups. You're kind of on your own, or we have this blind thing where people say, well, color doesn't matter, or race doesn't matter, or family groups don't matter of whom is whom, but you really should understand and know whom is whom, so that way you're not lumping everybody in. And then that way, when later on in the Bible, when we get to some of the more difficult sections of the Bible, we can understand and say, oh, okay, with the right context of geographical knowledge, ancestry knowledge, racial group knowledge. And so that way we can understand who is who. And some people, they find these things out to be argumentative, but then there are some people that really just want to know, okay, well, who is God talking about when he refers to this group of people? And I've stated this previous, amount of times. You can't be mistaken for someone unless you look like them. So, a black man can't rob the bank, and then the banker says, well, it was the white guy that did it. And then they'll say, well, how could you figure that? They're two different, colored people. And then the banker might say, well, they look alike. That doesn't make any sense because one is black and one is white. So it would make sense to understand, okay, who is who? What did they actually look like? So then there's a continuance. If you guys can look up and see some of the continuance of this is the Battle of Ulai. Now the first one that I showed you says the Battle of Tiltuba, which they're saying that they did have some time apart from each other, the battles, and that they didn't happen on the same day or anything like that. Although the battle of these two battles, they look very similar because it is the same people groups fighting each other. Then you'll still see, these very same features that these people have. Dreadlocks, more nappy looking beards, and even the Assyrians, they don't have extremely straight hair. They've got some texture to their hair as well, and even their beards, it looks like they put some style to it, dreads kind of twisted at the curly twist at the very end. Maybe even some beads or something like that they could have put in there for design. Just different things that they decided to do to make themselves stand out from other people. Even their clothing, the clothing that they have on, the armored gear that they're wearing is a lot different. The Elamites, they do have very similar clothing style to the Israelites as well. That was something else that I had noticed. So because when I would see them, I would say, well, because I knew where these were, and you could find these at the British Museum as well. And I looked at them and I was like, why does everybody keep saying that those are the Israelites? Or summing it up as so because of the fringe on the ends of the clothes. But then, I'm looking at, I understand that because these people were coming from the same blood family line, their same kin. That's why I brought up the Genesis 10 and 22 to give you guys some background, some factual background of the people groups and where they came from and whom they stem from, and as to why they may have Shemitic or Semitic features. So I hope that gives you guys an idea about the Elamites and what they may have looked like. Now I'm going to move over to the Israelites. I'm going to go over to 2 Kings, the 10th chapter, the 29th verse. Howbeit the sins of Jeroboam, the son of Nebat, who made Israel to sin, Jehu departed not from after them, to wit, the golden calves that were in Bethel and were in Dan. So they continued that paganism and practices, that the Lord didn't like. I'm going to go over to 2 Kings 10 and 31. But Jehu took no heed to walk in the law of the Lord God of Israel with all his heart, for he departed not from the sins of Jeroboam, which made Israel to sin. So Jehu walked right into the same things that the previous king was walking into, or one of their previous kings, Jeroboam. Here is a depiction of Jehu bowing down and paying tribute to Shalmaneser, one of those depictions of the black obelisk, which is another really great one that you can find in the museum as well. But these depictions of the Israelites and how they look, they have very same features. Very coarse textured hair, very, they look like they're black. They have very black features. And that was one of the things that, let me know and understand, okay, this is why I can see why they're comparing these depictions of the other family groups to one another, because they really do look very similar. And this helped me to understand as well, because one of the questions that even I've had asked over the years, okay, Lord, well, what do the Israelites really look like? Is there proof? Is there something out there? And one great thing about pride, when people do another people group wrong, they like to keep the evidence of how they conquered people, or how, basically, let's say it like that, how they conquered them, how they destroyed them, how they humiliated them. They take pride and joy in keeping that, and they turn it into a trophy. And then we later see that, some of those things don't stay within their country or within their land. They're now in museums around the world, um, which I'm really grateful for even that, because then we get to see some of the true depictions of what the people groups looked like at the time. Whether they want to call them ancient or, whatever they want, old or ancient, whichever one you want to use, that's how the people looked. Um, and even if you guys go back and you guys want to go back and study what we did last week, with the Egyptians and their hieroglyphs, and their murals of how they depicted, the Hebrews, even on their murals and on their hieroglyphs, they depicted them as black. They were dark-skinned people. So that was very helpful to us to go and see. And as I spoke before, we see depictions and movies that come out, or documentaries that come out, and they tend not to go towards what color were the people, what racial group did they come from, things like that. So we get a Hollywood image, like we talked about the Ten Commandments, seeing the people out of those movies and seeing them with the wrong depiction of how the people looked. It was not a correct image. So I'm going to keep going in the slide. Okay, I hope that gives you guys a good depiction of how the Israelites looked and how King Jehu looked. And I think that they did a great job on the way that they did the art for that obelisk. I'm going to go to 2 Kings 17. In the 12th year of Asa, king of Judah, began Hoshea, the son of Elah, to reign in Samaria over Israel 9 years. And he did that which was evil in the sight of the Lord, but not as the kings of Israel that were before him. 17:3. Against him came up Shalmaneser, king of Assyria, and Hoshea became his servant and gave him presents. I'm going to go to 17:5. Then the king of Assyria came up throughout all the land and went up to Samaria and besieged it 3 years. 17:6. In the 9th year of Hoshea, the king of Assyria took Samaria and carried Israel away into Assyria and placed them in Halah and in Harbor by the river of Gozan and in the cities of the Medes. Okay, and my personal favorite, this is the siege of Lachish or Lachish. This can be found also at the British Museum, and this was a siege or a captivity of the Assyrians on a Judean city. And when you look up some of the history on this, it will say Lachish, 701 BC, location, Lachish, Kingdom of Judah. And we know that Kingdom of Judah, those are the Hebrews, or the Israelites, as some would like to refer to them as. And they have very similar African features. The coarse knotted hair or nappy hair, whichever one you guys want to say. Very coarse. The men, very coarse beards. The hair, very, those little balls, those little twisty balls. And then there's even some that are depicted to have dreads and, or locks, whatever you guys want to say. And then the Assyrians, they have very similar features as in the other slides that I showed you guys previously, the other two battles with the Elamites. So these people groups aren't really changing very much of how they look. Still same similar features. The Assyrians that are depicted, same thing. Hair more waved down, twisted, those twisted curl balls on the ends. Same waves, like the same styles, even that we have today. And you guys know that, or some of you. I won't say everybody in the room. Some of you guys know how to get those defined waves. You got to wear the cap, and you got to get your hair cut a certain kind of way. And some of you use pomade and different things to lay the hair down, and to, get certain brushes and things like that, certain caps to keep the hair down. But anyway, some of those same hairstyles and features still stick out to this day on many people groups that are of African descent. They still rock the dreads and the twisties, and even those twisty balls, waves, so those hairstyles have not left. And I come to find that texture of hair, with those hairstyles, we tend to see that on a lot of people that are of African descent, as I said before. And you can find a lot of these images within the British Museum. And they also have some documentaries that talk about I'm not sure how some of the people would like to refer to the people that are there, but you have scholars that will straight up say, oh no, yeah, that's the Israelites, or that's the Hebrews. And then you have some scholars that will just say, oh, that's the people of Lachish. So you'll see that. And this is a topic that has been argued over many of times of who these people are. So I hope this is helping you guys to understand and get some of the correct ideology of whom the Israelites are. Also, some of the images that you see, the musicians, the gentleman with the cornrows, or the thick-looking dread cornrows. I have asked a number of times, where has that come from, and exactly where is it being held? And I've gotten a couple answers that those are Assyrian prisoners, and they're playing music during their relief. Also, I've heard people say that those are the Israelites, or that they're Hebrews. But that is a very popular, another popular stone that you will see, stone carving that you will see, which it's a really nice image. But I like to be correct when showing or saying, oh, this is whom this is. But the depictions of them, and even during their reliefs, are very similar to those of the Elamites as well as the Israelites. So I do not doubt that they are one and the same. They could be one or the other. But I do believe that they are relative to those two people groups. But there are some really great images. Okay, I'm going to go over to Jeremiah 25 and verse 1. The word that came to Jeremiah concerning all the people of Judah in the 4th year of Jehoiakim, the son of Josiah, king of Judah. That was the 1st year of Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon. And 9, behold, I will send and take all the families of the north, saith the Lord, and Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon, my servant, and I will bring them against this land and against the inhabitants thereof, and against all these nations round about, and will utterly destroy them, and will make them an astonishment, and an hissing, and a perpetual desolation. So, once again, I find that when you're looking at captivities, and even when you're researching captivities, some of the same imagery, as far as the Assyrians go, it shows up over and over and over again. And even when you go to travel to see these things, you end up seeing a lot of the same imagery that have already been placed out there. People have argued about it and whom it is, and all that stuff. But those same type of depictions show up in these people. They're taking captive the same people, the same kind of people over and over again. And you see them with those same depictions, the dreads or knotted hair, froze, cornrows. It's the same depictions over and over again. A lot of the things that you'll end up seeing. But what I do appreciate is that those things have been preserved, and we can go and look and find those things today in museums. That way, it can give us a better understanding of whom is whom and what they actually look like. Job 20:27. The heavens shall reveal his iniquity, and the earth shall rise up against him. And another one, another translation says, the heavens and the earth will testify against them. And another one of my favorites, this is a Hebrew head found 1886 by Francis Galton. It says he commissioned Flinders to take photographs of different racial types on the monument from ancient Egypt. And I guess they found this in Memphis, Egypt. So I'm going to read a little bit about the documents that I have here. Now it says, peopling the Old Testament. In the Petrie Museum, there is a finely modeled terracotta head on a mount and stand labeled Hebrew by Finders Petrie. The head comes from the city of Memphis in Middle Egypt, potentially from the Ptolemaic Greek ruled period from 330 to 30 BC. The city of Memphis had a large migration of different peoples, particularly from the time of Persia's conquest in 525 BC, on which included a distinctive Jewish population known from Papyri to have played a large role in the public life and administration of the city. Says Thomas, 1988. That must be someone's notes. The head, museum numbers UC 33278, was published in Petrie's excavation report, Memphis. In 1909, he compared the head to a tomb, says the Hebrew head, Petrie Museum. I'm going to go to the next page, 130. And this is from the Archaeological of Race, the eugenic ideas of Francis Galton and Flinders Petrie. It says a painting at Beni Hassan, which he had previously intended to photograph as a part of his racial photographs in 1886, but could not as the tomb was too dirty. Petrie wrote the type is that of the Semite, as shown in the chief of Amu at Beni Hassan, but sturdier and fatter, owning to a settled life. It probably represents the Syrian or Jewish trader. Petrie, 1909. Let's see some notes. The head was confused with the portrait at Beni Hassan listed in Petrie excavation report, and so was placed in a much earlier Middle Kingdom Dynasty 12, 1991 to 1778 BC on the Petrie Museum catalog. Petrie labeled this head Hebrew, partly because of the known mix of peoples in Memphis from the 15th century BC on, but also because he thought it matched a Semitic profile. The Oakart cataloging system until last year online of the Petrie Museum records UC 33278 in this way. Terracotta head with black and red paint showing a typical Semitic profile, hook nose, splayed nostrils, wide upturned mouth, and flattened eyebrows. Now there's some 4 pictures on the second page that I'm reading here. Now this one says from Sidon, Sarcopus, and that's the more, that's the top one too. I don't know if you're right or my left, but that's the top one. And then the next one says Persia, cavalry officer, and then the third one with the number 19 on the top of it, it says Amu from Beni Hassan tomb. Oh, and that's the one that they got it mixed up with. Okay. And then the other one, the Hebrew head, it says Semitic Syrian. So, in turn, that's why it was placed under that 12th dynasty, because those were more Egyptian-looking people. But then, even then, see, to me, that could revert back to how those men, those Hebrews, they were mistaken for Egyptians. People like Paul and others that, we've talked about previously that has said, like Moses, let me say, that was said, they were mistaken for Egyptians. And that could be a reasoning of why, because they do look very similar. Even on the very bottom of that picture, when you turn the head and that depiction of Amu to the side, they look alike, very much alike. That's how you can put the two together, and they do look alike. This is another great find. This one is labeled, though, Hebrew prisoner or Hebrew Egyptian prisoner. And this one is at the Hetch Museum. That's Hecht Museum. That is the Reuben and Edith Hetch Museum, and that is located at the University of Haifa. And Haifa is in Israel. It's a very controversial one too, because when you try to do some research on it, a lot of things pop up. But it is definitely in there within their museum. And you can see, from stuff, from back side to side, there's no way that these people are labeling these things wrong, just like, oh, oops, we forgot that those people don't look like that, that's silly. So you you have museums all over the world, and if they're all labeling these things very similar, just as we look at the Lakesh relief, the Hebrew head that I just showed you guys as well, and then this one. I mean, they're in 3 different places, so it's not like people are conspiring together, like, oh yeah, make a mistake on purpose, And my last and final verse, Genesis 11:31, and Terah took Abraham his son, and Lot the son of Haran, and his son's son, and Sarai his daughter-in-law, and his son, Abram's wife, and they went forth with them from Ur of the Chaldees to go into the land of Canaan, and they came unto Haran and dwelt there. This depiction is of the Chaldeans and how they looked. And it's been said a number of times that it's believed that Abraham was from Ur, which we know that the Chaldeans were there. And some of the depictions that you will see there, they have very similar features as well as the Israelites and the Assyrians as well. And all those nations that we talked about here that are from Shem. It is been said, this last slide, that these were some Chaldean survivors. They were going through a battle. And they actually really found some really, really great depictions of the people on some of those tablets that they have. I find that this has been long argued as well, of whom is whom. If you have eyes to see, then you have eyes to see. And if you have ears to hear, you have ears to hear. But there is nothing wrong with researching. And I tell you guys all the time, if you absolutely do not know, ask God. God will lead you in the correct direction. And I want to say, I do apologize if this has overwhelmed, some of you, even some of you here with me. And this has made some of you cry as well. Not knowing and not seeing some of these images before that you've seen today. It is really a game changer, and it's a life changer. And I even for myself, thought over the years when I ask God questions, and then when He reveals things to me, whether it be by accident or, I just, of course, you just stumble upon something or somebody tells you, and then even then, sometimes we don't believe people right away, and sometimes it does take time to cope and to understand. Okay, and not only that, to take some of your blinders off. And I told you guys before, in order to learn something new, you're going to have to go outside of your comfort zone. And you're going to have to step outside of what you have been programmed as well. And not only that, the Lord tells us, don't lean to your own understanding. So one thing that you may have been programmed to think may not be at all. This video was strictly for educational purposes. I hope and pray that this is a game changer for some people that might have been looking for something like this. And I pray you continue your journey with the Lord. And I'm very grateful to those that support Power Panel 365. And I thank you all for tuning in, and those of you that joined me here today. Thank you, and may the Lord bless you.